today's Be'ez Hashem Chulin Daf Kuf Yud Beis. But we're starting Kuf Yud Aleph on the bottom. Kuf Yud Aleph on the base on the bottom. Itmar, the first wide line. Itmar. Dogim Shalu Bekara. Yeah, famous sugya of Nat Bar Nat. We're going to go through the sugya Be'ez Hashem of the Machlekes Rav and Shmuel about Nat Bar Nat and how we paskin the ganze sugya. Okay, so let's get the story clear. Let's get the Gemara, the Pshatov of the Gemara, because I think in the Pshatov of the Gemara there's two very big Pshatov of the questions that the Achronim are Mochizach, Toisus, the Rishonim Mochizach, and maybe we have a shtickle Pshat. Itmar. Dogim sha'olu bikar. So what does it mean, olu? Dogim sha'olu bikar. This is very important. Zok Rashi. What does olu mean? Olu means minatzli, meaning that the pshat is that you have the oven, right? Now, if you have something on the pot is up here, but the oven is lower, and anything got lowered into the oven. So olu means that the pshat is they picked it up and they put it on the plate. Dogim sha'olu minatzli. And Rashi says they are reiseach. Yes, dogim sha'olu minatzli is very important. So Rashi, dogim sha'olu minatzli, sha'olu b'kara minatzli, kishahayu roischim, they were piping hot, they were bubbling hot, nosnon l'seich hakara, sha'achal b'vasa. So I have a plate, and this plate is a fleishiga plate. It's a fleishiga plate. Right, obviously, we're talking about a plate that's a ben yomi, that we're going to see that concept of Be'ez Hashem, right? If it's not any ben yomi, then we have then b'chlal it's not a problem. But let's say the plate is a ben yomi. It's a plate that we just served steak on, yeah, and she'achlu b'basar, and I took a fish that was piping hot from the tzli, and I put it on that plate. Good. No problem. All's good so far. Now I want to eat this with this fish. They didn't have ketchup in those days. They had a different condiment. What did they have? They had kutach, and kutach was made made from milchiks. How was it made from milchiks? It was made because it had nisyovi dechalba. Nisyovi dechalba, we said, is the way. Now the Rukega actually asks Azayt the Kasha that there's a tzad in the. There's a tzad later on that the Nisyoy b'dechal was only b'drabanan, and so he wants to know. He's matmiya stam as I think a kasha on the sugya that I talking. They spoke the whole ganze machlekes, the whole sugya, the ganze Nat Bar Nat is avegestelt by a kusach a chol of drabanan on the tzad that it's only drabanan. Yeah, it'd be a big plea. Why did they say this halacha by a bas b'chol deraisa? Yeah, that's the but pashtus we say that way is taka deraisa anyway. So mela, but his kasha is like those shitas. It's a little bit of it's a big deichik in this sugya. Anyway, Zok Gemara right. So dogim shalu b'kar, and he wants to eat this fish with kusach. By the way, agav urcha, they bring a raya from here. These two zaytige kashas. Stam say about now he's meeting. You're mixing fish with you have fish with the flavor of basar, and then afterwards you're eating it with a milchik condiment. So they learn up from this case two obvious questions. First of all, the question is, we know that mixing dogim with basar is sakanta. So why is there no sakana? Why is there no sakana of eating this dogim? Forget about the kutach. I shouldn't be able to eat these dogim because Zoktataz, very good. Zoktataz, no. That there's no sakanta. That vaisto is a sakanta. By please. Very good. As a Zoktataz, very good. Yeah, that's first of all. That there's no sakanta from blias. Fine. Now Bas B'chol is going to be the issue now. Now, one second, before we get to Bas B'chol, the sugya, there's one more thing. There's a famous girsa in the Beis Yosef that he discusses if there's maybe, I mean, Beis Yosef muchazach about the l'shoynis and sakanta arichas if there's a sakanta issue on dogim with chalav, just like there's dogim with basar. And the big raya that there's no problem of dogim, kiyadua, some people are makel. Some people, the most the most Jewish thing is one could do is eat cream cheese and lox, except that the Beis Yosef brings down that there are those that are machmir not to have cream cheese and lox because it's duggan with challah. However, the big raya is from this Gemara because the Gemara has the whole issue is the whole but there's no problem of duggan with kutach itself. Duggan with kutach is not a problem. This is a big raya that there is no such sakanta. The sakanta is only basa with duggan but not okay, but that's a zaytik gezach. But on the sugya itself, zakti gemara. So what's our problem? Our problem is that I have the tam basar that got into the kara. It's going to go into the dagim, and it's going to go into the dagim, and I'm eating it together with muchas and fleshiks. Yeah, that's the bas b'chalav. So zakti gemara, ma dagim shol b'kara, rava ma osa lo ichlam b'kutach, b'shmula ma mut lo ichlam b'kutach. So we're going to discuss Be'ez Hashem the lumdis. There is a lumdish shmuz over here, what the issue is. But I first want to go through the Pshatava story of the Gemara. I think it's very, very important. And then after that, hopefully we'll remember to get to the lumdis of the shmuz. So the Gemara, so Rav says Asa, Shmuel says it's Mutter. Zok the Gemara, and I'll tell you why. Rav Amar Aser Noisin Tam Ho. It's a Noisin Tam. That what? That you're still going to get a flavor of the basar through the medium of the kara. It's good. You had basar on this plate, and then after that you put the dogim on it. So the dogim are going to transfer the flavor of the tam basar, and it's a nice and tamu. Nice and tamu. Why? Because nice and tam, bar nice and tamu. That what? That it's 2 steps away. Why? Because the basar put it into the ka'ara put it into the dogim, and now it's 2 steps away, and 2 steps away is fine. That's not bar not or noisin tam bar noisin tam, and that is fine. That is Shmuel, and we're going to Be'ez Hashem paskin like Shmuel. We'll see in the Gemara. Zok the Gemara. Let's get the pshat of them. V'ha de Rav lav befeirush itma ela michole. I want you to know, Zok the Gemara, that the story of Rav, it's not a mefurish machlekes. It's not a machlekes. Even though in the beginning we said Rav Ma'osa leichlem bekutach Shmuel Mamut leichlem bekutach. No, but that was not really. It wasn't like that. That's how it was brought down. That's how it was remembered. But Avada, there was no such member. He never said it beferish. Right? It Rav ikla lebei Rav Simi b'Achia bar Berei, because Rav went to the house of Rav Simi bar Achia bar Berei. He went to the house of his enikel. Yeah, he was staying by Rav Simi. Rav Simi was the enikel of Rav, because Rav had a son Chia, and Rav Chia and Rav Chia had a son Simi. And he had this, and he went he went to go visit his enikel Rav Simi. Chosh be'edav, he had a problem with his eyes. Ovdulei shaifa, they made for him some kind of a shmirach for his eyes. Bitzah in a kli. Basar hachi, after they did the whatever potion they were doing for his eyes to fix up his eyes. Ramulei bishula. They ramulei bishula. Look at the lashon. Ramulei bishula means they poured in something that was cooking, right? Ramulei bishula. Why? Because alu machmasli is a lashon of bringing up, because the oven's lower and you pick it up and you put it onto the plate. Mashenkin, when you have a pot on top of the oven and then so the pot is already higher, then the pot starts off at a higher place and you pour something into this plate. So Ramulei bishula, they poured something piping hot onto this plate. Begavo toimlei taima de shaifa. He tasted in this soup or this chont or whatever they were eating, whatever this bishula was, this tafshul. He tasted a flavor from the eye makeup, eye medicine. Amay yoyev taima kulihai. Wow, vaistois, that it gives a flavor so strong. It gives a flavor so strong that it goes even through the plate. Goes through the plate. Now, it goes through the plate. Now, there's a very, very, very a zaytig problem with the story, right? So, what are we seeing from here? Somehow, we see from here, Rav holds not by not. Now, there's a basic pshat problem with here. This is not by not. This is not rishon. The medicine went into the plate. which put flavor into the cholent. So that's regular nice and tam. That's a regular kedera shebishul b'cholav kedera shebishul b'basal yivash b'cholav. It's a regular tam rishon. That is a zaytig problem with this story. Yeah, very zaytig problem in the shayla. Okay. Now, before we go weiter, we must say over Ephraim Zalman Margolis' murder pshat. We said this over already once before, but it's gorgeous. Ephraim Zalman Margolis wants to know, there's a whole bunch of Gemaras, including the last blot in Menachos, where Rav is talking and Rav Simi asks a question, and Rav says, "Simiyat," and then he, and what's he saying, "Simiyat"? So the Gemara says maybe it's a lashon of chashivas, or maybe, because Rav, the other Rishonim say Rav he wasn't able to see, and since he wasn't able to see, so Mamela he wanted to know if it was Simi that was talking. The shaila is, how come if Rav had a problem with seeing, how come there's no other places? How come there's no other questions where he talks about anybody else? Why is it put Simi? Dr. Ephraim Zalman Margolis, the teretz is in Daf Kuf Yud Aleph Amid Beis in Chulin. Dr. Ephraim Zalman Margolis, we have a Gemara that Rav was in the house of Rav Simi, and when he was in his house, by his Eidikel's house, what was the problem? His eyes were hurting. He wasn't able to see. So not that Rav always had a problem with eyesight. Those couple of days where Rav was in Rav Simi's house, he had a problem seeing, and obviously Vostot Rav and Rav Simi, when they're together in the house, they talk and learning, and all those cases happened during that period that Rav was in Rav Simi's house with an eye problem, and he said, "Simiyat." But not the pshat is he had a problem of seeing always. That's this Gemara. That's why over here we have him first in Gemara. The Rav was in the house of Rav Simi, and he had a problem with his eyes. Sakram Ephraim Zalman Margolis is mamish gevaldik pshat in those Gemaras. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, right. Yeah? It's gorgeous, no? What? Yeah. Zok the Gemara. Okay, good. Zok the Gemara. But it's not true. So again, so l'chura from this Gemara we see klar not by not, even though like the Ramban asked that l'chura it's not by not, it's not rishon, but l'chura right, because it's not rishon, it's the medicine goes into the plate. There's no separate. There's no second medium, right? The plate was only the first nice and tam. Okay, but it's a mistake. Rav never meant to teach a halacha from there. Shani Hasam the Nafish Mirara Tvei. So again, Kipshuta, the way you read the Gemara, that Yoev Taima Kuli Hai, Rav was not saying any halacha. He was just like it was as a oyster kazal, like, hey, what do you know? I taste the flavor. Says that's the time. Shani Hasam the Nafish Mirara Tvei. And Rav happens to be medicine has a very, very strong bitter taste, and therefore the bitterness over there lasts even by when it goes through a kli, but not in general. So kipshutoi, and like Rashi says, the lashon of uman, right? That it was a mistake. That the whole thing's a mistake. Rav does not hold not by not. Uman deshama zak Rashi sava de islay Rav nesinas tam bar nesinas tam nami bauma. The one who heard it thought that, but obviously Rav doesn't hold like that. Yeah. Kipshutai, that's what happened, and Rav doesn't hold that by now. Now listen to the next story and throws off the whole thing. So the Gemara, Rebbe Lezer have a koyim kamei de mashmul. Rebbe Lezer, who was a Talmud of Rav, he was standing in front. He was by Shmuel. I see lekamei dogim shalu bekara. They brought him dogim shalu bekara. This stuff that I was talking. They brought him mamish hazayda. V'ka'achal bekutach, and Shmuel was eating it bekutach kishmaitzei. Yoev lei. So he gave some to Rebbe Lezer v'layach. So Shmuel told Rebbe Lezer, you should eat. Amrei lerabach yehivi lei v'achal v'at layachalta. I gave this to your Rebbe Rav and to eat, and and he ate. And you're not going to eat. End of the story. Also, the Kamei the Rav. So now Rabbi Eliezer goes running back to Rav to find out. Do we yuchayzer from your sugya? Amalei chaslei lezare the Abba bar Abba the lisvi leimidi the leisvirli. Chas v'sholem. I can't imagine that the son of Abba bar Abba, Shmuel, who's no chashivas about him himself, Ben Amram, as a lotion of like, but his father was a great chassid. He wouldn't do that to me to feed me something that I don't hold from. So mefurish that what the Rav holds that napanad is also. But the Gemara says v'loihi shani hasam the agav merira tvei. Push the problem. Obvious. Push it. What's the mathematics in the sugya? Zog Tosfos. V'loihi shani hasam the nafesh merare. Zog Tosfos kiloima mikan ein lo hichiach. Avol hu beferish amro kidemuchach b'sabach. Rav says, "Chaslei lezari the Abba bar Abba the list of midi leisvirli that it's mochach that Rav holds like that taka." So the Gemara says, "Shani hasam nafesh maratrei." The Gemara means to say it's just get raya, but what? But what? So we have a first member. So this is matcha the Gemara. The Gemara means that had it just been for that story, it wouldn't have been a raya. Okay. Rashi forgot to tell us this whole story. Rashi doesn't even address the question. What's going on here? Tosfos is madcha the Gemara. There's a very, very, very simple pshat havadik shayla over here. What exactly happened in the sugya? Yeah, the Gemara says shani hasam the nafesh merari tvei, and it's veloihi, and there's no such Rav, and then all of a sudden we have a story with Rabbi Eliezer, and Rabbi Eliezer and Shmuel says chaslei lezare the Abba bar Abba the listen like me veloihi. Yeah, he doesn't hold of it, so now we do have a Rav that holds of it mefurish. Yeah, a very simple pshat havadik problem that Rashi at first glance had not addressed b'chlal. I think that's the biggest kasha. How did Rashi not ask this question, right? The oid dachreinim muchazach. What's that kind of pshat? What's the chaslei lezari the Shmuel by Shmuel? But Shmuel said he did it, right? So Rav says ladam. He never gave it to me. But Shmuel said he did. What exactly is happening here? Shmuel's lying? What exactly is happening? Shmuel says, I fed this stuff to your Rebbe. And he ate it. And Mamela, you should eat now. And so Rabbi Eliezer goes back to Rav, and Rav says, Ladam, the story never happened. So what, Shmuel's lying? He was talking He was talking not a chassid. What's going on over here? What's the pshatov? Mamish the pshatov of the Gemara. So Achrayim say it's a whole elaborate shtickle Torah about this thing. That let me see if I can remember how it goes like this. That if the halacha is that if your Rebbe holds one way and you hold a different way, if your Rebbe holds one way and you're in a makom, Rav holds one way and Shmuel holds the other way. So what's the halacha? Do I have to go bust my Rebbe, or do I go bust my bust the minig hamakom? So it depends. If I'm going, you hear the shtickle Torah, it's a going shtickle Torah, but this is how it goes. If I hold like that be'etzem, so then I have to be machmer over here as well. But if the whole reason why I'm paskening that it's also is because mishum kvoide the rabbi of Rav, so then over here the kavod hamakom of Shmuel is more chashuv. So Mamela, so how is Shmuel going to tease out what Rabbi Eliezer himself holds? He told Rabbi Eliezer, no, your Rebbe was chayza. If your Rebbe was chayza, so now the pshat is, and he still doesn't do it. Pshat is because he holds like that, and if he holds like that, so then he taka shouldn't eat. But if the word is, if when he tells him that his Rebbe was chayza, he digs in because the pshat is the whole reason why he was not doing it was b'mishum kvoidai. The rabbi, then over here, he should eat like Shmuel, Mishum Kvoidoi, Kavod HaMakom. That's the shtickle Torah that they say. Again, it's a nice shtickle Torah, but again, shteit mishdab. Okay. So I want to say it like this. It's mamish meduyik. The sugya started off dogim she'olu b'ka'ara. Zok Rashi that what? What does olu means? It's olu minatzli. Dafka by olu minatzli. That's the case. Olu minatzli. Olu minatzli, Zok Rashi, what does that mean? That means that it's piping hot, it's roiseach when it comes out of the tzli, and then it went onto the plate while it was roiseach. Masha'enkein the case by the shayfa b'tzah, the eye medicine over there is Ramulei Bishula. Right? So now like this. Rav said his halacha by dogim shalom b'kara, Rav ma'osa leichlem b'kutach and Shmuel ma'amot leichlem b'kutach. Then the Gemara repeats, Rav amar noisen tamu, v'Shmuel amar mutter, because noisen tam are noisen tam. We're not saying that the lav michlal on the first case. On the first thing, that dogim she'olu b'kara over there, avada, that's ironclad. That's a Rav amar osa and Shmuel amar mutter. The second one, that Rav holds a klal of nois and tam by nois, that every time you're going to have, every single time, every second hand is always a nois and tam, that's where it's going to be michlala. So in other words, in the case where Rav, where they Ramulei Bishula, it wasn't a tzli shalu b'kara, it was a Ramulei Bishula, and a Ramulei Bishula over there, it was, they thought that Rav also held nois and tam by nois and tamu. They also thought nois and tam by nois and tam, right? And they thought so, but it's not true. The only over there that he said nois and tam kuli hai, yoiv time kuli hai, and he meant to say taka legabe bishula, but he didn't mean to say by iri kli rishon. In a case where you pour from the kli rishon into the second case, into the pot, over there Rav was not saying it. He was not saying that it's nois and tam by iri kli rishon, only by a kli rishon itself, only by a davagush, by something that's reseach itself. So now it's very gishmak. So now you want it. So there was this ambiguousness here. Rav said his halacha by dafka by dogim sha'ala b'kara. But the Olam thought that Rav had his halacha in the case of in the case of Ramulei Bishula as well, where they didn't take something piping hot out of the tzli. They took something from the pot and they poured it into this plate. And in that case, the Gemara says, Loi, Rav doesn't hold like that. They thought that the Rav held like that, but Rav never held that. Now it's very gishmak. Shmuel did feed something to Rav. And Rav is not saying the story never happened, but your way it didn't happen. Why? Because Shmuel gave something of Ramulei Bishula, Ivri Kli Rishon to Rav, and Rav ate it. So Shmuel thought that must be Rav was chayza. Because Shmuel also thought that just like the Gemara thought that Rav holds nois and tam by nois and tam in every single case. Not just by olu minatzli. Shmuel also thought that Rav has the shita by every single case, including by Ramulei B'shula or Iri Kli Rishon, and he saw Rav ate it. He says he was chayza. But the case where Shmuel was talking about was a case. Shmuel was serving Rebbe Lezer alu minatzli, and alu minatzli. The truth is, we know that Rav wasn't chayz in that case. So memela what? And memela, Rav said la'adam. He was never chayz on that case. That's the gevaldik cheshbon of the thing. If you go through the Rashi's are mamish meduyik. Rashi says yoiv taima kuli hai shechayz v'nois and tam bebishel. Rashi points out. Uman the shama asova this lay the Rav this is not nami ba'alma not by bishul mefurish. That Rashi saying that Rav was saying his word by bishul, but not by bishul, by irei not. V'loyi. Yeah, it's very gishmak mamish mefurish that this knage of of this knech that Avada Rav was Avada the story happened. There's no right Avada the story happened, but what happened was the story was by Rabbi Bishula, and Shmuel read into that Rav was chayza because why? Because Shmuel thought that Rav holds his halacha by all not only by tzli, and the truth is that Rav was only by tzli and not by bishul. Like the Gemara says, v'loi. Okay, that's the Gishmak story, the Gishmak pshat. Oh, and I want to say one more knech. The Rishonim say one more. The Tosfos over here brings down a shita from the Rivan b'shem Rashi that the whole sugya, that the whole sugya of not by not, the whole heta of not by not is only going to be if it was alu minatzli, but not if you were nisbashal in the kli. In other words, like this: if you took these dogim and what happens if you took the dogim and you cooked them in a fleshig pot? I took dogim and I cooked them in a fleshig pot, and now I want to eat them bekutach. Is that mutter or not? Zok Tosfos from the Rivan b'shem Rashi. B'shem Rashi pirish Rivan chasnei dafka alu sharu avon nisbashlu also dikichat time achoshev. Then already it becomes one big flavor. Yeah, and he brings down a story. Above Maisel in front of a beitzim shenisbashlu b'kdei shel chalav v'asal asmem ulaisa shel basar. He wanted to make some kind of a filling for meat. And he acided it. You couldn't use the eggs that were cooked in what's called in a fleshig pot because it was cooked. Once it's cooked, it's worse. So a ganze shmuz, a ganze arichas. Now what I'm being more is like this. Now that we learned in Rashi that the whole sugya, not like Tosfos doesn't have what's called it. Tosfos doesn't have this whole sugya, but Rashi's klar mechalakim between olam and atzli and ramulei bishula. So now it's so meduyik. This shita of Rashi. Again, Rav and Shmuel are arguing dafka by olam and atzli, and not by ramulei bishula, and not by nisbashal. They're very, very carefully picked out the case of Olum and Atzli. Now it's Meduyik, that obviously by Bishul not. Right? Because if the chiluk would be in between Bishul, Kli Rishon, and Mashla, and Kli Sheni, so why don't you say Kli Rishon? No. He's dafka spoke about a case of Olum and Atzli. It's mamish Meduyik in this, the way we're learning the sugya, that the whole shmuz, the whole conversation was, if Olum and Atzli is doima to Ramulei Bishula, it's mamish Meduyik. They dafka spoke by Olum and Atzli, and they didn't speak about one step more, where it was in the spashal and the kli, legamri. Okay? Gvaldik? Good. Okay. That's that Gemara. Okay. So the Gemara weiter. Talk to the Gemara Maisa. Ravuna Rav Chia Barashi Avi Yasvi Chad Behai Gisa de Mebra, the surah. Yeah, surah had some kind of, had, I guess, the Euphrates that was running through the city of Surah. Yeah, once Tatlafush expanded and it became much, much bigger. It wasn't a little backwater anymore. Now it's a big, big city already. It expanded and it included already the incorporated part of the, I guess, the Euphrates part of it as well. So the two of them were sitting in Surah. One was on one side of the river, and one was the other. So they see each other there, and they could see each other, they could talk to each other. However, they're on two different sides of the river. One of them, they brought him and he ate it bekutach. And to the other one, they brought him fruit that were not olu machbas asuda. They were not. He was not eating it as lafis b'em as a pas. He was eating it as some kind of a dessert or something. But it was v'seich asuda. And he didn't make a bracha. So they shouted each to the other one, Mar Amle Lechavre Yasma Ovid Rabba Chachi. Your mamish, Yasim, you without a rebbe, your rebbe taught you like this. Umar Amle Lechavre Yasma Ovid Rabba Chachi. So the other one called out the other way. Look at you. Look who's talking. Yasma Ovid Rabba Chachi. Did your Rebbe teach you to do like this? Not to bench, not to make a bracha rishona and a bracha achroina on something that's dvarim habayim b'seich hasuda shlei machmas hasuda. Yeah. Yeah. So what happened? So the one that was eating the dagim shalu b'kara b'kutach, he said, "Yeah, I hold like Shmuel." The Tani Reb Chia pass poiteres kol minei meichel v'yayin poiter kol minei mashkin. The pass patters anything that's bought b'seich hasuda even if it's bought in shlei machmas hasuda. Yeah. Yeah, and that's the story. Okay, yeah, that's the story. Zok Gemara vayto amachiski mishma bayim hilchisa. What's the halacha? Dogim she'olu b'kara muta lo'ichlam b'kusach. The halacha is with paski taka like Shmuel that what the napanat is muta. The dogim she'olu b'kara is muta lo'ichlam b'kusach. However, tznoin shechot choy b'sakin. Tznoin is a radish. Shechot choy b'sakin, shechotach b'basar. But tznoin that you cut with a knife, that you cut with it meat, aser loichloi b'kutach. The same, which is l'chura, it's l'chura the same grandchild, right? Because the tznoin is l'chura in the same position as the dogim, because they're both 2 steps away from they're both 2 steps away from the basar, right? Right? Let's say both. We started off with basar. With one of them you put into a kara, and one of them you cut meat. You cut with a knife. Then you move on, and in the plate you put fish, and with the knife you cut the tznoin. So the chura, the tznoin and the fish are the same they're the same level. They're both 2 steps away from the basar, right? They're both 2 steps away from the basar. But however, when it comes to the dogim, we say it's mutar lechem b'kutach, and the tznoin we say it's asur lechem b'kutach. Yeah. What's the word? So Rashi and Amud Aleph, 2 Lashonis and Rashi are both brought down la'alacha, very important Rashis. Rashi has 2 pshat. Rashi says a gavaldig chilik. One chilik zok Rashi is that by ka'ara mishum miyususa mishum people's basic what? Yeah. People, everyone that has an aversion for a dirty plate, and therefore the stomach is that a plate is going to be clean, and there's not going to be any shamnunis. There's no.
You're going to have showers.
What?
Before they bench, so basically the dirty plates.
Oh, right. So there's no. But even on the plate itself, there might be a slight sliver, what's the word? A slight what? A little bit shamnunis, some mamashi, and then we're not talking about nois and tam. We're talking about mamashi itself, right? And the mamashi zakra by a plate zakrashi. We're not choishish for that. Why? Because the stump. What's lashon of Rashi? Let's see the Rashi inside. Yeah, the. Yeah, this verse thin line. The stam kara mekankan aisa mishum menakara shalei mishum mios. Aval sakin pa'amem shasham nunes karush olavein neger. Yeah, mashenkin. When it comes to the sakin sometimes it has some kind of a grime, some kind of a shamnunis that's stuck on the sakin, and the mela it's so now we're not talking about nois and tam. Now we're talking about a mamashi. Now what exactly? Why? I mean, obviously the question is if this gzeira changes, if it changes based on time, that would be stami yisayis the gemachlekes. But I want to know a little tifo. What's the word in this nafkamino? Why is it that people are more mos from a dirty plate than from a dirty knife? Are we talking? Do we mean to say because one is a serving plate and one comes to the table and one is only in the kitchen? In the kitchen you get away with more stuff. Is that what we mean to say? What are we talking? Maybe, and there'll be nafkamina. Are we talking? We're not talking about the steak knife that you eat by the table. We're talking about only dafka the sakin in the kitchen. But when it comes to the what? What's the chilik? What? And not the second.
Yeah.
I just a possibility of another svara is the svara that Baruch was saying, which is also nekei l'chura, that stam kara, everything that's left on the stam kara is already eaten stuff already. That there's a mias. Mashing the sakin, when you're preparing the food, everything's clean. Right? So maybe that's the miyasusa. The stam miyasusa is because leftover after somebody's choned. That's miyas. But the pshat is, but what's in the kitchen, everything's clean and fresh.
Maybe.
A fakir svara. Yeah? It'll come out pufa. Yeah. I'm saying it's important to know exactly what the svara that Rashi is discussing. That's very, very, very serious. Okay? Givaldi. That is one svara. Givaldi. That's the chilik in between. That's the chilik in between. It's nine and Dagam Shalom Bukara. That's chilik number one. Zak Rashi, the second chilik. Second chilik Zak Rashi. The chilik is that Tznoin has churfe, and the charifus of the Tznoin is agav charifuse, it's bala. That it's going to be, the charifus of the dogim is going to make it to be boilea more than what? Than Tznoin. So Agavocha and Tosfos brings down the second svara of Rashi of Agav Charifusay it's Bala, and Tosfos wants to say that this will be a raya to the Rivam b'Shem Rashi, because if the pshat is that that misvara, yeah, and the question is if we say the svara or not. But Tosfos held misvara that it's not mistaber to say that even as powerful as the charifus of the tznoin is, that it should be balea, it can't be stronger than something that's nespashali for slow cooking for many hours. So Tosfos, that's a raya to Rashi. To Rashi b'Shem Rivon, right? Yesh lahavi raya ledvar mitzvay shechalcha b'sakin das lech lebekutak b'shum da'agav chofei balatvei v'chashiv kichad taima. It's stronger than what? And dogam shalom b'kara. So Tosfos v'nisbashlu loigara mitznayin. Cooking can't be worse than tznoin, no matter how powerful tznoin is, but nisbashlu can't be less than that. That's what Tosfos says. Now, Tosfos says if a dava pashlet nisbashlu le'garam tznoin, it happens to be that Rashi by tznoin adds another svara, and there are those that say maybe yeah. Tosfos holds me svara nisbashlu le'garam tznoin, but if you look at Rashi good by us, Rashi in Kufyud Bezim and Aleph, Rashi says tznoin that first of all it's charifus and agav duchka de sakina polit sakina bolit tznoin. That it's two things. It has the charifus and the duchka de sakina. Now, so some achronim say that who told Tosfos? Tosfos said misvara that charifus can't be stronger than bishol. Maybe you're right. But here we have more than that. You have duchas sakina as well. The duchas sakina is going to gang up together with the charifus, and it's going to make it stronger. That's a shmuz. Okay, but we wanted to say that the raya for Rashi is not from here. Okay. I think it's kedai to just run back and say one more thing in that Tosfos over there. The Tosfos asks a kasha from Rashi. Tosfos asks a kasha from Rashi, a dik from Rashi that not like the Rashi Shem Derivon. Because when Rashi is telling Avek not bar not, and this we're going to do the last order in this Gemara, and then we're going to move on. Other sugyas nothing to do with not bar not. When Rashi is discussing when Rashi introducing the heter of not bar not, Rashi says noisin tam bar noisin tamu. So Rashi im hoyu mevushalim im basam mamish hoyu also loichla bekutach. But this is a second step. So right that what? So Tosfos says noisin tam. I understand. But a nice and tam, bar nice and tam, that's where Shmuel's makel, right? Yeah, that's the Rashi. So what's the case of nice and tam, Dr. Rashi? If you cook the dogim together with basar. Frek Tosfos, why is Rashi saying that to become a nice and tam, you have to be cooked together with the basar to be a nice and tam rishon? No, the Rivan tells B'Shem Rashi that I can be what? I can be a nice and tam. I can be a nice and tam by just being cooking in a fleshing pot, just cooking it. If I cook for a long time, then I'm already a nice and tam. So why did Rashi say that I have fish and meat swimming around the same pot to make the fish a nice and tam rishon? He should have said, I don't have any meat in the pot. I just had meat yesterday in the pot, and now I have only dogim in the pot, and it's already just a fleshing pot. Makes you a tam rishon, like the Rivam Shem Rashi that in the special is kichat taima. Yeah, that's the kasha. That's the kasha of the Rivan. Right. That's the diak he wants to say now, like Rashi. But I'm just saying, Rashi is not coming over here to paskin halacha. He's explaining the concept of nois and tam by nois and tam. So he says, nois and tam, if you had a first tam, then I understand. But this is a nois and tam bar nois and tam, fine. So Rashi is giving you the case of nois and tam, where the basar gave tam into the dogim. But Rashi is not coming to say a halacha, say that this is the only case of nois and tam. It's definitionally what a nois and tam means. Okay. You hold on. Okay.
That's Pshatovim.
Yeah, Pshatovim. I'm talking about Pshatovim. Could we bring a right from this rationale to do? Okay, good. Givaldik, good. Let's go right to something more right. Okay, so it's 9. We said that what? It's Chorfei. Agav Chorfei Bola. Avol Kishais. But Kishais, which is gourds, right? Face like squash, right? Gar lebei paske v'achel. It's not going to be. It's not bitter. It doesn't have the charifos. It's only sweet, and it's not bele novos. But the ma'aseh, you can have some shamnunis of the sakin on the that's going to come onto the kishes. So gar lebei paske v'achel. So you have to take off the shamnunis that's in the cart. Now, we have to be mo'ir in this Rashi, that l'chura it's a little bit interesting. So there is shamnunis on the sakin. I mean, that's l'chura only one pshat in Rashi, right? The second pshat in the Rashi is al chorfei, and there is no shamnunis. But this l'chura, the Gemara is mefurish. Rashi over here doesn't say two pshatim. Over here he's saying mefurish that there is a charif, that there is a shamnunis on the sakin. So it could be that the word is it could be the words like this. The word is like this. That's true. Both pshatim hold that there's a charifus that there's a shamnunis on the sakin. And the question is if that's the reason that we have to be choishish that there's a shamnunis on the sakin. And that's why by kisha is gar lebei paske. You have to chop off a little bit of the edge of where he cut it, of the cut, because of the chashash of the shamnunis. The question, the shaila and the two lashonis in Rashi is if that's why they were machmer because they were choishish of the shamnunis, or no, that's not the reason why they were machmer. The reason why they were machmer was because of charifa the sakina. Okay, so to my right, avkish is gar lebei paske v'yachol kilchi the lifter. Now, what happens if you had you cut bulbs of turnip? Shari, because kilchi the lifter are not, again, they're sweet and they're not sour, they're not bitter. Yeah? The silka, mashenki, when it comes to beets, asiri. Silky is asiri. V'i pasach behu the lifter, shapidami. And if between the beets he cut up some turnips as well, so the turnips will clean up the sakin, it will draw out the flavor from the sakin, and you won't have any problem for the silka either. So, right, let's move on. Yeah, exactly all the pitch of kiss and all the sifkatans about this halacha, every single zach, every single Rashi, every single word over here is discussed at length. But we're gonna get the pshat out. So, Rav Dimi Nachman, Maul Anuche Kado. The meilcha gabe kado the kebe So kipshutai, we're talking about in the storage room, and we're talking about do you have to have separate shelves? Do you have to have a separate storage room for your milchiks and your fleishiks, or for your milchiks and your parav to be exact? Or I could leave my my container that's holding salt next to this, my container that's holding kimcha. What's kimcha? The kutach. Right? So kutach is a milchige condiment, and you have a milchige condiment, kiyadua, somehow, don't ask me how, they had this milchige thing that sat outside, and there was no refrigeration, and who knows what who knows how bitter it was, and it was taka very, very bitter. And you had this the kimcha sitting around, and next to it you had your the milcha of salt. And what's our chashash? So Kipshutai Rashi says that the problem is that you have the milchiks in the. If some of the kutach is going to fall into the salt, and then I'm going to turn around and meat with this milchig salt is a problem. That's kipshuta what we're saying. There is a shini haloshin that the Beis Yosef brings down in the Rashi when the Gemara says shema yibam and akutach b'chaymetz v'yachzer v'yitein. It seems like there's a I don't know exactly, but Kitza, the question is that there's two lashonis and there is a shina lashon, but anyway, that's the Gemara. Okay, so the Gemara, no, the lashon of Rashi is okay. I don't remember exactly. Okay. Yeah, so the milka gabi the kimcha. What's the story? Could you put them next to each other? But there is a shittas of Rishonim, a shver shittas of Rishonim that holds that the question that there's a tzad that maybe the flavor is going to go from one kad through the other kad through the walls, and we're not talking about that it's going to drip. We're not talking about from the top that it's going to drip, and we're talking about uncovered. We're talking about even if it's covered, that somehow it's going to go through the walls. Again, and it's pretty clear that we're talking about leaving here for a long time. We're not talking about putting it there for a second. Also, how about vinegar? Could I put a vinegar, kli that's holding vinegar next to my salt? Vinegar next to the kutach. Could I have the vinegar next to the kutach? Do I have to be choishish over here? Vinegar also goes a lot of times into fleishiga, into fleishiga foods and tavshilim, and I have to be choishish that maybe there's kutach in the vinegar. Amalei shari. So he told him, if you'll measure me a kura de milcha, in other words, you pay me, I'll pay you. And it was a sarcastic lashon. My time is like tomorrow. Hi isa isura be'ene, v'hai lesa isura be'ene. That the pshat is that by the salt, the kutach never dissolves, so it's be'en. And if it's be'en, so we choishish, we have to be choishish again. This is a gzeira d'rabbanan that he might end up salting the meat with this kutach, which is not dissolved. Mashenkin, when it comes to the vinegar, even if kutach falls into it, it's going to be completely dissolved, and it's going to be in a spatel, and won't have any problems. Let's move on quickly. Hahu bar gozla, the nafal lekad de kimcha. We had a duck, the nafal lekad de kimcha, that fell into a container that was holding this milchige kutach. Shai Reb Chanina Breder Rava mi Prashrunya. So Reb Chanina Breder Rava mi Prashrunya was matrit. Amar Rava, man chakim the mishri ki ay gavne. Who is somebody that has the koyach and the chachma to be matrit? We'll see. No, but so again, the kutach is cold. What's this? What's the question? It's a cold thing. You had this barguzla, this poultry that fell into a cold continent.
It's not cooked.
Yeah. So yeah, ilav Reb Chanina brei the Ravim miprashonya. Nobody else would be able to have the goinis to be able to pass. What's the pshat? What's the head? What's the head? And what's the question? What's the shayla? It's more like this. Kesavar, even though kutach has salt, and memela we should have a problem of what? The meliach hareu kitzli. And the pshat is, so now it's like mamish basa b'cholav because this bar guzla was cooked. It was with salt, right? So it was cooked together with the kutach, with the milchig kutach. But he's kasav akiyam mashmua meliach hareu kireseach. When the shmuel say it is davka hanimi lehecha de'enu nechol machmas molchay, it has to be something that's not nechol machmas molchay. Avol hai kuscha harei nechal machmas molchay. Kutach is salty, but it's not the level of Eine Nechel Machmas Mochai. Now, what is the level of Eine Nechel Machmas Mochai, which is a massive machlokes Rishonim?
Well, only say Meluch, you could say.
Yeah, right.
That's sheer Meluch.
Right. So what's the share of Eine Nechel Machmas Mochai? So Rashi says, Rashi, if you look over here, Rashi says Eine Nechel Machmas Mochai means we're talking about the real heavy salting process, which they used to do before refrigeration. They would salt things to the point where it was not edible with the salt. That's the lashon of Rashi. Ein nech liachal miroiv melach sheboy ad sheshoyinu medichin esu b'mayim kein malichas basa lahatznia, like the salting process that we do to lahatznia. That's exactly mefurish what Rashi says. That's Shitas Rashi. However, most Rishonim argue with Rashi, and they say ein nechal machmas mocha means it just has to be a salt that that's nechal machmas mocha. In other words, he doesn't do it for regular for eating. In other words, and nechal machmas mocha it's a little bit shved lashon, but it means the melicha that you eat for the table salt, as opposed to anything above that is a problem of meliach harei kesech. But the mashal, the melicha that we do for dam, which is not nechel machmas, which is much less than the melichas basal atzniya, we would also have a problem of meliach harei kesech, and we'll see Bez Hashem the sugya later on exactly how it is. But they say we're talking about a much less thing. But whatever it is, kutach doesn't have that level of salt it doesn't have the level of salt of meliach harei kesech, and therefore, if even though the bar guzla fell into the kutach, which is milchix, but it doesn't have any mixing process, it's not because it's not reseach, because it doesn't have the level of nechel machmas mocha, and mamela it's mutam. Saktumar bahani. That's all talking about. There was a raw bird. Avosli, but if we had already roasted the thing, then already you're gonna have to go and peel off the first layer of the bar guzla, because now already it's softened. The tzli is already softened, and once it's softened, then it's gonna absorb. Yeah. And if this bird happened to have cracks in it, kuliyasa, because the flavor is going to go all the way inside. And if he had already flavored it, he had already seasoned it, so then also it's going to have been the tavlin. Rashi says does two things. First of all, it softens its shell, and it also makes it tzamei livloya ubaleya, and it's going to be aser. So tomorrow, right? Let's move on. Amar Nachman Amar Shmuel Kika Shechat Chalav Alei Basar Asa Leichlam. A kikar, a loaf of bread that you cut on it meat Asa Leichla. So what are we talking about? What kind of meat are we talking about here? What are we talking about? So Rashi says, and it's going to be more in the Gemara later on. We're not talking about basar, raw basar. We're talking about basar that was already roasted. But in those days, they roasted the meat that they roasted before it was salted, because you don't have to salt for tzli. Right? Maybe you have to do a mashu of salting. We'll see, but you don't have to. So they didn't salt it. So memela, what's the problem? So the problem is, even though this basar is fine, I can eat this basar, but I can't eat the bread, the meat was cut on top of it, because the bread is going to absorb dam from this meat. So kika shechat chale basar. Zokti Umar, V'hanimili the asmik, and even that is not always, not in every case. Dafka the asmik. That means that it was taka. It was very red, right? It was very red, so it had a lot of blood. The hanimili the avre, and it also has to be that there was so much that the blood was obviously so much there. The avre that it ran through the bread from it ran through the bread from one side to the other. The hanimili the asmeche. And also, if it's a thicker substance, avo klishta less lamba. But if it was a very thin liquid, then this is not dam, and you have nothing to worry about. So because Shmuel holds this halacha that if you cut meat of minatzli on top of a kikar, so Mamela he holds an issa of dam. So Mamela Shmuel shadi leil kalbi. He threw it to the dogs because he holds an issa of dam. Rav Huna yoiv leil shame. Rav Huna gave it to his Jewish butler. If it's mutter, so why need it himself? L'kuli alma shari. He also, if it's also l'kuli alma also, it's also for his butler as well. Why is he giving it to his shamis? So Marshani Ravuna dani nedato. In other words, Ravuna holds it's mutter to eat. He wasn't choishish, but the reason why he gave it to his thing is that he was an istinus and he felt unclean and mias to eat this bread. But obviously, but it was not a problem of dam. Zok the Gemara, Rave, Achalei v'karlei chamar basar. Rave was the next level. He ate it himself, and fakerd, he said this is a major delicacy. This is chamar basar. Chamar basar. This is the yayin of basar. This is the chashivas. This is the real good, the gravy. Yeah. Zok the Gemara vayta. Zok the Gemara. So now we're going to come back to ask a question from this Shmuel from the next Gemara. We discussed earlier in the middle of yesterday's block the concept of a beidugi. Beidugi was some kind of a gravy trap that would catch the gravy on the bottom of the basar, right? Such a kind of a thing. So Zakti Gemara, you can't put that beidugi tachas basar ad sheyichle komari admimus. You have to wait. Again, we're talking about roasting basar that hasn't been salt, so it's full of dam. So I have to wait until all the red runs out of the basar, and then I could put my gravy trap, no problem, catch all the gravy. But before that, don't do it because it's going to be full of basar. No. Then it's going to be full of dam. Sorry. Yeah. How could I know when the dam is over? How do I know what's dripping from the basar? So tomorrow, when it starts smoking. Now it's not clear what it means mishatal timrasai. Rashi brings down two pshatim. Either mishatal timrasai means when the meat starts smoking. When the meat starts smoking, that's when it's ready. The dam had already expelled. Or maybe mishatal timrasai is talking about the coals. That the coals, first the dam comes down. The dam doesn't make the coals smoke. The dam puts it out. It submerges the fire, whatever. It puts out the fire. When it comes to gravy makes it start to smoking. That's the two pshatim in Rashi. Frekti Gemara Maskler Avashi. What do you mean? Mishatalatim rasoi, meaning that what? That either the coals or the meat started to smoke. Right now, obviously, there's gravy here or fats that are ready to give off a smoker asha. Frekti Gemara maskif lo Ravashi v'dil mutata mata ilo mata. It's very mistaber to say you have a piece of meat that's facing the coals. So part of it is finished expelling dam, and now it's all full of gravy and it's giving off nice juicy gishmaka of fats, and the top of the basar is still raw and full of dam. So how's it going to help you? You're going to now catch all the juice. How can you catch all the juice? Let's be choishish that maybe now that the smoke started, that means that the bottom part, the part that's the closest to the coals, is already at the state where it expelled all the dam and now it's giving off gravy. However, Tata Mata, the Tata already is at that stage, but the Lo Mata, maybe the top has not gotten to that stage yet. Elo Ravashi, Lesle Takanta, Ela Mishtebe Trey Gloli Milcha. There's no Eitzah, you have to put 2 pieces of salt. Now, the ikar, I'm not saying that this is la halacha, and there's a lot. The whole this whole halacha of trei gloli milcha is not really negel la halacha because
the salt, the blood goes into the salt, gets taken out to the salt.
because salt that's the concept that Chazal tells us that salt draws the blood. So what you do is you put trei gloli milcha, and that draws it, and it's going to put the melech. It's going to draw it to the bottom, and it's going to stay on the bottom. So a few things. So Rashi says trei gloli milcha. If you look at the bottom Rashi and Amud Aleph, it's mashma very clear. What's the trei gloli milcha? So Rashi bein al habasar ubein b'seicha kli. That for some reason it's not enough to have one piece of melech, to have the melech on the bottom of the kli, to draw all the melech on the bottom of the kli. I have to have on the basar also. That's the trei. One on the basar and one on the melech. Not sure exactly why you need both. Yeah, but okay, that's how Rashi learns. That is how Rashi learns. Yeah, very, very clear. Now, Rashi at the end of the sugya on Amud Beis brings down a bahag that the bahag says that what's the lashon of trei gloli milcha? That you have to be careful. Don't put too much salt, because if you put too much salt, it's gonna break up the blood's properties. It becomes ois blood, and once it's ois blood, it's gonna mix with the gravy, and you lost it, and you won't be able to separate. This whole concept of being able to provide a way that the bottom part is going to be blood and the top is going to be gravy. That's only if you have just the right amount of salt. You have to have trei gloli milcha. So Tosfos, based on that, Tosfos on Amud Aleph, Tosfos on the bottom last 2 lines. The daf noka trei gloli aval harbe melech poisik koyach dam ve'ein anu b'kiyah b'davar shlei laharbes v'shlei lamayit, and therefore Tosfos. We don't use this heter b'chlal. That's the bottom 2 lines of Rashi because based on the bahag that Rashi brings, so Tosfos, there's no way that we could needle point it and get it just right, and therefore we don't use this whole heter. But let's finish up the Gemara umishvaya. So after you use the trei gloli milcha umishvaya, and then you pour it carefully to make sure just the top stuff comes out, and the bottom the blood will stay on the bottom. Amalei. So now getting back to our story. So what did we just say? What did we just say in the story? What did we just say in the Gemara? We said a ma'isa from Shmuel that Shmuel said that you can't put it until the marad mumus. But once the marad mumus is gone, then you could use you could use your beidugi, right? How could it be that Shmuel says, and we said, was he cut the basar that was olam and not tzli? This is already done. It's already, the whole tzli is done. It's also to eat it's also to eat the bread. What's the problem with the bread? The teretz is the bread absorbed the dam. What's the problem? It absorbed the dam. The dam is already gone. It already was nisashin in Gansen, and now it's already giving off gravy. Yes, it's giving off gravy. Now it's already olam and done. Yeah. So to Yomara, Shani Hasam Agav Duchka de Sakina Palit. Over there, when you're cutting the knife, it is true that whatever's going to come out from the roasting has already come out once it starts to smoke. But now that I'm going to cut it, when I cut it with a knife, it's going to push out stuff that's still stuck in there. Agav duchad de sakina palit. It's going to expel some more dam, and that's going to ruin the bread. Yeah, let's start the next Gemara, which is really the Akdama of the grace of sugya of salting. Let's just start it real quickly, and then and we'll stop. A second. You know what? Maybe we could stop here. This is really malicha. It's a whole new sugya. We'll start. We'll do it with. You want to see it quickly for a second? What? A minute, mamsh a minute. Let's see it quickly. If you salted dogim and oifos together, asur. So the Gemara like this. And that we're going to see. The halach is like this. Salting any basar, even one piece of basar, in a kli that has no holes, then the problem is that that after it's finished expelling, even after you salt it, it's expelling the dam, it's going to come and absorb it back. So let's be worried about absorbing it back, right? You always have a problem with a kli she'eina menukav. The teretz is you have a kli menukav. So you have a kli menukav, so the dam, the tam gets drawn out, and it leaves. So if it leaves, so why are dogim worse? That's going to be the most kasha. If we're talking about in a case where the bottom kli is eina menukav and the dam is all collected on the bottom of the kli, I feel oifes nami. Forget about the dogim. Every time you have a problem, oifes nami asiri. Elamai kli menukav. We're talking about kli menukav and the dam is going to run away. I feel the dogim oifes nami. What's the problem with the dogim? I feel the dogim oifes nami shari. So kli menukav. We're talking about a kli that has a hole, and aval began is going to be also a dogim like this. Mishum de rafi karmayu kadmi ufalti for oifis kimiti, but basa denaichi dogim pliti oifis v'hada bali mine, which means like this. We have to make sure that every piece of basar that's stacked up against each other or together with each other are on the same schedule. They're going to start being poiled dam and at the same time. Why? Because if they're on a different schedule, then like dogim, what happens is like this: the dogim they're quick to the chasana because they have a very very thin krum, and therefore they release their juices right away. And once they release their juices, they're ready to absorb the dam which is on top of it. You have basa that's on top of it, and that dam is going to come in, and the dogim are ready to absorb, and it's going to absorb. The dogim, but the oifos are much slower to the chasna. By the time the oifos are ready to expel the dam, the dogim are ready to accept. That's what the Gemara says like this. So the Gemara, let's see the Gemara, and then we'll stop with this. V'dogim mishum de rafi karmayu, since their skin is very thin, kadmi ufalti, they quicker to being pilot. The oifes kamiti, and the oifes are still slow. They're kamiti, meaning their shell is still hard. And in other words, they haven't yet started to expel. Basa the naichi dogim, when the dogim already finished expelling all their juices, pliti oifes, that's when the oifes start to expel their blood, and the dogim are ready to be beleh to absorb it. And there's the next Gemara. Okay, the next Gemara is going to be talking about the tzir of Reitvan. Okay, it's going to be much more malicha.